Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Good to see you.
Yes, good to finally see you.
Yes.
Am I
Glad to
audible
join.
too?
Yes, you're audible. You're perfectly fine. I hope I'm
Yeah,
audible.
yes, you are. Yeah, I don't think you'll need earphones.
Yeah, I prefer not to have earphones.
Yeah, but how do you do this? You wake up so early and you're so charged up.
Coffee. No, but I've been doing a few events because it's convenient for India time. And
Okay.
for those watching, I'm based in Seattle in the US, so this is
Okay.
5 o'clock for me. But I'm
Wow.
that's fine. I mean,
Okay.
the pandemic has made us all adjust, and this is my way of adjusting to all this.
Or maybe it's a hint, that you should come back to India.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, that has always been on the cards, and maybe that could happen anytime in the next
Yeah.
year or so.
Okay. So how long have you been there for?
I've been in Seattle. Actually, we've been here for 7 years now, and
Oh,
yeah, my wife works here. She has a full-time corporate job here, so I
okay.
followed her when she got the job. But I've been doing freelance writing and editing and other work, so it's been good, flexible. Been working from home all the time, and yeah, it also helps with generally family and sanity. And now the whole world is working from home, so
Exactly, which is what I was coming to. Yeah, it's become like the new trend. I don't feel like anyone's going to actually like going back to office after a while. You just
yeah,
want
and
to
I think
work.
and I think people have started to realize that you can get most of the stuff done at home, apart from of
Exactly.
course,
Yeah.
some absolutely necessary days. Most of it can be done online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true, actually. We'll begin in a minute or so. Let's just wait for a few more people to join us.
Sure, sure. Yeah, anytime. And thank you all, whoever has already joined. Thank you for taking the time out. It's great to see some names popping up on the chat. So where are you based? Are you based in Bangalore or are
I'm
you based?
based out of Bangalore. Yeah, based
Okay,
out of
okay.
Bangalore.
That's good. So two people from Bangalore talking about a Bangalore book. Like you're based in
Yes,
Bangalore. I'm from Bangalore. So yeah.
Bangalore.
Yeah,
The book
Bangalore's
was
home.
so relatable. Sorry?
No, Bangalore's home for me. So whenever I come back to India, I come to Bangalore. So yeah.
That's nice. The city hasn't changed. I think we still have the same traffic, same weather, same potholes. Everything's just been consistent right from 1993.
I think the traffic has definitely changed. We didn't have that much traffic before. You
That
could
much
get from
traffic back then.
no, not at all. You could get from one part of the city to the other in like 20 minutes. I mean,
Wow.
20 minutes to half an hour on say Sundays and all that. And you could get to most places without too much. The traffic is probably one of the big changes. But yeah, I mean, people who've lived there long feel everything has changed. But you seem to think that there's still a lot of commonality. So good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think mainly the weather. I've seen a drastic change in the weather over the years, where you're talking about rainy season and so much that's written in the book. It's hot right now.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
That's definitely changed too. We used to have like specific clear seasons, like December and January used to get pretty chill by South Indian standards. I'm not saying as chill as Delhi or other places, but it used to get pretty chill. And people who used to visit from hotter places like Chennai used to complain all the time, as is mentioned in the book as well.
yes.
But now, yeah, I mean, even by February, things get hot. February, March gets pretty hot, and then after that, it's just summer through, right?
Yeah, I think that's one major drawback of late.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Let's start. I think yeah, let's begin if you're ready.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, let's start. Happy to
So,
begin.
hi everyone, I'm Natasha Doshi. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another episode of Sapna Rise. In conversation today, I have Mr. Siddhartha Vaidyanathan, and this is his book. We're going to speak about the book, What's Wrong with You, Karthik? And yeah, so I think I'm looking forward to getting to know and speaking to you about the book.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. And Sapna is a bookstore that I associate with Bangalore. It's a store that I have visited often when I was growing up, and I was fortunate to have parents who were obsessed with books and bookstores, and so we used to go to Bangalore bookstores all the time. And Sapna, of course, whenever we were around, Sapna, I mean, one of their oldest bookstores was in the Majestic area, which is near
Yes,
the
Gandhinagar.
station. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, which is near the railway station. So whenever we used to go to pick up people who are coming, whenever we used to go to the railway station, we used to always go a bit early so that
Hmm.
we could visit, Sapna bookstore and all that. So yeah, it's a thrill to be joining in this chat.
Wow, I'm so glad to hear that. Even throughout my childhood, I think Sapna Book House has been a very iconic and nostalgic place. Any textbook, any last minute exam preparation, I would run to the store and get it. And now I'm so happy to be working with them.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful to fulfill that dream for you too. Yeah.
So tell me about the book. Can you just introduce the book to all of our listeners?
Absolutely. So the book is called What's Wrong with You, Karthik? It is the story of a 12-year-old schoolboy,
Mm-hmm.
and it tracks his life through 1 year of his school life. So it's set in 1993 and 1994. So it
Okay.
starts in May 1993 and it finishes in May 1994, just like a typical school year. And yeah, it talks about his challenges, his life. This is a new school that he's going to in the book, and so he has to get used to the new friends and the teachers and everything. This is an elite school in Bangalore, so there's also this additional pressure of needing to impress people and needing to do well, and the typical challenges that come with any kind of 12 13-year old growing up, teenage years, adolescence. And yeah, I mean, I hope you read the book and have a good time.
To all our listeners, please do get your hands on What's Wrong with You, Karthik, if you haven't read it already. And I've read the book, and personally, there were so many things that I could relate to, even though I haven't been to an all boys school. I studied in a co ed school. But there's so much I could relate to about the experiences, the pressure, the exam situation. There's a lot that, you can actually connect to with in terms of families. Like Karthik comes from a middle class Indian family, and the kind of situations that he comes across and the way he's brought up, it's very, very relatable. So to anybody who wants to go back to their childhood, I think this is a must read.
Yeah, thank you for that. And the idea was to also bring out that middle class upbringing, and
Yeah,
contrast it with the all boys school, which is a totally different vibe and a totally different environment, where
yeah.
often rules don't apply. But at home, it's full of rules and discipline and all that. So yeah, the idea was also to contrast that.
Is it really such a harrowing experience to be a part of an all boys school? Like everything
Not
that you've narrated in the book.
Not for everyone, for sure. I mean, a
Okay.
lot of people have great fun, and it's
Mhm.
amazing because in an all boys setting, you develop a camaraderie and a bonding
True.
that is very hard to do in a co-ed setting, because as you would know, even in an all girls setting, it's a little different from co-ed.
True.
But there are always these people on the margins who have a difficult time fitting in. So my
Mhm.
whole idea of the book was not to bring out the mainstream experience, but to bring out the marginal experience. And there are
Yeah.
some boys who have a very, very difficult time, especially boys who are not yet sure of themselves, boys who are not yet confident of themselves, or if they're doubting some aspects of their personality,
Mhm.
it becomes very hard, because there's this whole ganging up. So boys would gang up on them and things. So I wanted to bring out all that, but also bring out the mainstream experience of the bonding and the friendship and the camaraderie and all that.
That's very interesting. And there's very interestingly, there's a Karthik that just joined us. So, hello,
Oh,
Karthik.
wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm always thrilled when Karthik talks about the book or reads the book. I think I've had about 6 Karthiks who have got back to me after reading the book. And so
So,
I often joke that I should form one little Karthik club for this book, and we should meet every few months and talk about it.
absolutely. Call me. Even I would like to come and witness the entire chat.
I think I just saw Sambit Bal join in, and Sambit Bal is,
Yes.
I think it's the same Sambit Bal who was my first boss at ESPN Cricinfo. So hi,
Wow.
Sambit. Yeah.
How was your experience, I think, from sports journalism at ESPN, and then you went on to the Wall Street Journal, plus you also wrote for Indian Express and Guardian and so many reputed newspapers, and your first debut novel. So how has the whole thing been? And I also heard that, you're editing academic papers there in Seattle. So,
Yeah, yeah. So my current full time, I mean, my current job, my day job, is to help professors in universities in the US edit. I mean, with their papers, publications. They publish a lot of academic papers and books and teaching material and everything. So I help them structure it. I help them get a better flow, and I also do like basic copy editing for them.
okay.
Of course, my passion is still writing, and I try to write as much as I can. Yes, the Indian Express, Guardian, and everything was all freelance assignments, and
Mhm.
many of these publications were happy to take freelance contributions. But yes, my journey really started in Cricinfo. It was Wisden Cricinfo back in 2003
Okay.
when Sambit, in fact, hired me, and my writing journey began there. And I would say that. Had it not been for that, I might not have got into this whole world of language and writing and editing. I might have done something totally different and had nothing to do with the written word. But it was thanks to that, and especially then, Cricinfo was very, very particular about good writing, rigorous editing. I mean, they still are now, but of course now they do so many other things. But back then they were known for their writers, and I was fortunate to be among one of those who were mentored into becoming a writer in that place. And then after that, I moved on. I did a graduate degree in the US, and so then I worked for the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg News. I was doing a bit of business journalism there just to get a flavor of different kinds of journalism. And then I decided that freelancing was my way of life, and I needed flexibility. So I've been, and then I did some more work for ESPN Cricinfo when they launched their long form magazine, the Cricket Monthly. I was one of the editors who was there initially. I mean, I was there for about 4 or 5 years actually. So yeah, I mean, I think the journey has been very interesting, but at the end of the day, it's all been about language and the written word. And I've really realized that I love reading primarily because I love language. And now I'm actually trying to, I hadn't kept in touch with my mother tongue, which is Tamil, and Kannada, which is the language that's spoken in Bangalore, of course, for a long time. But now I'm even going back and reading, trying to get back into reading those two languages because, just as there's so many interesting stories across languages, and why stick to just one? Why not expand?
That's actually really true. But your journey sounds so beautiful throughout. And one thing that I notice is you never let sports go. You were always inclined towards sports, and that kind of reflects in your writing in your book as well. There are a lot of elements of sports that come in. There's a lot of cricket.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, by the way, the Scuttlefish has joined, who is my editor at Picador India. She was
Oh, wow.
very wonderful with editing this book. So hi, Tista, nice to see you. And yes, in terms of sports and cricket, absolutely. I think for me, it's been very important to hold on to my passions. And cricket is something I've been passionate about for a long time, and I see no reason to completely give it up. I mean, of course I take breaks. I don't write about cricket for a long time, but then I always try and make sure that I'm in touch with it, because cricket reading and cricket writing gives me a lot of pleasure. And why
Hmm.
give it up? And so even in this book initially, actually there was much more cricket in it, but
Okay.
then I deleted a few parts because it was coming in the way of the other chapters and the other stories.
Mhm.
But why would I not want to bring in cricket when it is an integral part of me, and it is also an integral part of growing up in an Indian setting. And now, I mean, I think most people in India, even though they don't follow cricket, will have a general idea about it and definitely have an opinion about it. So, yeah, so I've stuck to cricket. And that was one of the other things that I wanted to, when I was thinking of writing a book, I said, what are the things that I'm really passionate about. And apart from cricket, I was really passionate about children and growing up and education and learning. And I found that whenever I spoke to people from my school or from my college, I found myself talking a lot about how we studied, what we studied, and why did we study this? Why did we not study this? And since I've studied in the US, of course, it's a graduate degree, but I also can see the differences between the two types of education. So this book is a result of my passion for growing up, children, education, and cricket. So it all comes together in the book.
I think it's the best of all the worlds.
Well, that's nice to hear. Yeah.
So let's talk about Karthik. I think he's such an interesting character. He's the main protagonist of the book, and I found the character to be so naive, so truthful, and actually, to be honest, if I can say, he's so cute. I mean, there's little things that he does. Um, while he's naive, like, praying to Lord Ganesha, his relationship and equation with his grandfather, there's so many intricate things that you've penned down that actually forms his character out. And let's talk about it. What was going on in your mind while writing about Karthik?
Yeah, it was very difficult to come up with the voice of that character. It was easy to realize who I wanted Karthik to be. I wanted Karthik to be this person who would be a ferocious observer. I wanted him to be this 12-year-old who would notice every little thing around him. But at the same time, I didn't want him to make too much of a judgment on people. Like as adults, it's very easy to make a judgment immediately when you see someone. But I didn't want him to do that, because children often don't do that also. They're pretty open to, finding out more, and they're curious rather than just saying, oh, this person is silly, or this person is whatever. Yeah. So I wanted Karthik to be that kind of a person, and also cute. Yes, cute is the part of it, because I wanted him to have that charm. I wanted his observations to make the reader feel smart. It's like, oh, okay, I would not have thought of that, but this 12-year-old has thought of that, because 12-year-olds look at life in a slightly different way, right, than adults. So I wanted him to come up with those charming observations. Initially, I had the first draft of the book was written from the point of view of an adult, like a 30-year-old writing about his childhood. But that doesn't have the cuteness in it, right? Because an adult is writing, and he's writing from a distance, and he's writing with a lot of reflection and wisdom, but he's not writing with charm. He's not writing with cuteness or with that certain little delicate touch, which I wanted. So that is what took me a lot of time. And finally, thanks to help from, editors and my agent, Shruti, and everyone else who read the early drafts of the book, I was able to get the voice.
Came through, because what I'm reading right now is such a genuine take on somebody's childhood. I mean, you describe a year of his education and his life, and everything. Even though, as I said, I've never been to I've always been a part of a co-ed school, so the entire experience makes it so real. Even the whole fact and the little descriptions, like, the morning ritual at Karthik's house, hero fountain pen, cherry blossom shoe polish, those little details is what makes you fall in love with the book and the character.
Yeah, but that's great to know. And by the way, I have to tell viewers and listeners that this Karthik that I've created has not that much to do with me itself, like the character. This was, I had to create someone who was different from me. And so even I was nowhere as observant as Karthik was, and I was nowhere as nervous as Karthik was. So I made sure that, when you have a nervous person, then they become a bit hyper aware of what is happening around them. Yeah. And I wanted that to create that feel, because Karthik has to notice everything around him. And so I was nowhere as that. So, this was a real joy to create this character. And hopefully the readers will like that as well.
I'm sure they will. Was it challenging for you to kind of create Karthik?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the biggest challenge of the book. And more than create Karthik, you have an idea in your head what he's going to be like. But how do you translate that idea into the page?
Yeah.
And the way to translate that into the page is with the voice. you have to get that voice that Karthik has to speak in. And that was the biggest challenge of the book. That took me like close to, I would think, 4 to 5 years to actually get,
Wow.
after a lot of writing as an adult, after a lot of messing up, after, you know, a lot of thinking and frustration. But yeah, eventually it did come through.
It's come through beautifully. Are there any incidences that, are inspired by your real life in the book? It's not about you, but I'm sure it's inspired from your childhood.
Yeah, a lot of the setting is inspired from my childhood. The school that I went to, I mean, I went to a school that is St. Joseph's Boys High School in Bangalore, still very much thriving part of Bangalore. And of course, there are lots of parts of that school that come in here. The family life is largely similar, though my family wasn't as conservative as Karthik's family is. But I wanted to bring in that conservativeness to contrast with the school, which was totally rowdy and a law of its own. But yeah, largely, the mother, the father, the conversations, everything is drawn from family. So definitely there's a lot that's drawn from my personal life. But the characters itself,
Mhm.
are not like, the father is somewhat like my father, but not exactly like my father. The mother is definitely not like my mother. The grandfather is probably the only character who is true to real life. I would say
Okay.
80% of the grandfather character is like how my grandfather was. But even the friends in school, like some of my friends from school have read the book and they're like, who is this person and who is that person? But it's not a direct correlation, because the characters in school are all like a mix of
Hmm.
different boys, and they're all creations. So you can't say that this person is the real life equivalent of that or anything
Hmm.
like that. So yes, inspiration, yes. But when you sit down to write and you have all these real life experiences, when you sit down to write, you automatically find some new things coming in. And so you add those new things. You're like, okay, anyway, I'm making up fiction. So make up more, lie more.
Wake
I
up.
mean, lie in
Yeah,
the sense of make up. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Who was your favorite character while writing down the story?
I don't know favorite or not, but one of the most fun characters to create was that grandfather. Even though, as I said, the grandfather is pretty true to my real grandfather, but my real grandfather did not see me going to an all-boys school. He passed away
Okay.
before that. So it
Okay.
was fun to create this grandfather and how he would react to Karthik when he's going to this elite,
Hmm.
high-pressure school. And
Cool.
it was fun to see how he would react to the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Karthik's bond with his grandfather also seems very unique. At one level, we see the love that they share, where the grandfather's so supportive and he's constantly helping Karthik and he's constantly pushing Karthik to his best abilities. But there's also a slight tactic that the grandfather uses to get some of the work done. So that's a very interesting balance over a very subtle play, I think.
Yeah, I
Of
mean, the grandfather, I mean, I see Shruti has joined. Shruti, again, I've mentioned before, my agent who was extremely supportive during the book. Hi, Shruti, thank you for joining. And
Hi,
so,
Shruti.
the grandfather is quite manipulative, actually. And the grandfather, is subtly manipulative because he just wants Karthik to, win this rat race. And, he puts all this emotional pressure on this 12-year-old. And that is all below the surface, because heart of heart he's seen as he's this very nice person who loves his
Yeah.
grandson. But there's also an underlying layer. Yes, you're right, he's quite manipulative in his own way, as most parents and grandparents are in Indian families. They're always making these deals. You do this, and then that will really make me happy. Do you want to make me happy? Then you do this. Well, why why
Yeah.
why do you have to be happy? But these Indian parents and grandparents keep doing these things.
And they also bribe you. I think that's one thing that's very common, where you get so many marks and I'll buy this gift for you that you've always wanted, or you do this and
Exactly.
I'll give you this.
Exactly. And that puts so much of additional pressure for absolutely no reason. Like, I mean, why can't you just give him a ticket to a cricket match anyway? You will give him it
Yeah.
only if he comes first in class. What
Comes
is
first in the
this?
middle. But I think that's the reality of most of the Indian families, where as broad-minded as they are, that little bit comes and seeps through most of the stories and most of the incidences that we have.
Yeah, and I also think that builds up a lot of guilt, because you almost grow up into a situation where you think that if you get some good thing without doing anything for it, that it's
Yeah,
actually not a good thing for you. Like suppose you go
yeah,
to a
yeah,
cricket match without having earned it, you feel, oh, okay, maybe I should
exactly.
not be at this cricket match. So there's this
Yeah,
whole sense of guilt that comes in, which is also
exactly.
explored in the book, because Karthik is full of guilt. And
Yeah,
Karthik is constantly, trying to question himself, saying, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done this, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And
yeah.
that's a terrible feeling, actually. For a child, shouldn't be filled with so much guilt. A child
True.
should be able to just do what they have to do. But that's the circumstances in which people grow up.
Yeah, and I also think it's the kind of family that you come from, especially in Karthik's situation. Their family is like, I can say it's a typical Tam Brown family, and there's so much of tradition and values involved. For each and every situation, there's a statement that says, "Did you pray? Did you wake up and you pray? You pray before leaving to school. You pray for everything." And you know everything has a certain ritual. There's a process of everything. There's that typical filter coffee morning, and there's a line that says the grandfather's mood was dictated on the amount of filter coffee he had. So if
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
two or
if
more,
the
and
coffee
then
is bad in the morning, then the day is gone. The day
the
is
day is
ruined.
gone. Yeah. So I think a lot of that comes from the family, where his father's a gold medalist, his grandfather's a professor and a retired army person. So that kind of seeps down into his character, where he's expected to be perfect all the time.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, because the expectations are so high, he's
Yeah,
constantly bogged down. I mean, there's no way. I mean, it's very hard for a 12-year-old to uh,
yeah,
perform to his potential if
absolutely.
every day is full of guilt and full of pressure. And how much ever he prays, it doesn't matter, because he thinks he hasn't prayed enough.
Enough.
And how
Yeah,
much ever he studies, it's not enough, because he thinks, there's still more to do. So and that's why also there's this character, this teacher character who comes in later in the book, who is was very important, because you need that one person in your life at that point of time to be like, okay, relax, okay, chill
yeah,
out, and that sort of character had to come in at some point. And I also had to make it a lady teacher, because there are not that many lady teachers in the book. So I thought it'd be interesting to contrast a relationship between a lady teacher in an all boys school.
cool.
So yeah, so you need those kind of people, teachers, or mentors. Otherwise the system can break you.
Totally. And I think, all of us perceive our school life as a very happy to go lucky experience. You're going to school, there's not too much pressure. You're just going, finishing your exams, doing a little bit of homework, playing with friends, and coming back home. But I think the book actually takes you through the real journey of how it's so intimidating to even walk into a classroom when you're a new student. I mean, so many little things like I think you've written down the first experiences that Karthik has, his first cigarette, and so many things that he does. But he's also so guilty about those things because he comes from such a traditional household, and most of us don't really address that. School life goes beyond just exams and fun, and there's a lot of other aspects involved. There's some ragging, there's harassment, there's a lot, that need to fit in, which, a seventh standard kid is going through.
Yeah, and that's why it was important to tell the story from the point of view of the kid itself. Because,
Yeah,
as you grow older, there are many of these little things that you tend to brush off. It's like, oh, okay, that happened when I was younger. That was so silly. That was so, I worried for something that I need not have worried for. But, the child doesn't think that way. For a child, every single step is a big, big deal. I mean, and every single word that he hears, a word of criticism or a word of judgment, is something that he remembers. And so that
absolutely.
the story had to be told, for me, I wanted the story to be told from the child's point of view, for people to realize that now it may seem like everything is silly, and it's all done. But back then, for people, for children, it's not easy. And, I wanted to get really granular about each moment, which is why, like, when he's studying for an exam, I wanted to actually give like a hour by hour update as to,
Yeah.
the kind of stress that builds up on the morning of an exam. And now,
Yeah.
of course, you look back at it and say, those exams don't even matter. But back then, that was the only thing that mattered. And
Yeah.
and I had to bring out the gravity of that situation.
Absolutely. And it comes across so real and lifelike because most of us have gone through the process of waking up at 4 o'clock before an exam and studying so much.
Yeah, and I'm now going through the process of waking up at 4 o'clock and doing an Insta
To
live.
do live
So it's just
session.
full circle completed.
Absolutely. But you have great energy at this time, I must say.
Coffee, I told you, filter coffee, the South
Yes.
Indian special.
Do
In
you
fact,
miss Bangalore?
the coffee
That
that I have is the Bangalore coffee. It's the coffee that I would have had in Bangalore. So I
oh,
do miss a lot of Bangalore. And whenever I come, I try and explore the city as much as possible. But I end up
okay.
exploring traffic most of the time. That's the problem.
That's there. But is there any specific place that you really miss?
So many places like school. I go back to school whenever I go to. There are
Okay.
so many little places. Corner House ice cream, airlines hotel, where you
Yeah.
sit outdoors and eat. That. In fact, a lot of our friends used to meet there whenever we go. We had
Yeah.
this ritual. Many places in Bangalore, which I mean, bookstores in Bangalore, including Sapna and several other bookstores, and just going to places where actually these days I like going to places where there are not that many people,
People. Yeah.
because the population has increased so much that only when I go to a place that's slightly people less do I feel that I'm back in Bangalore, because that was how
Bangalore.
Bangalore was like, it was so free
Yeah.
of people. I mean, it was there was open spaces, breeze, and that's, I really seek out those places now whenever I go. And yeah, and friends more than anything. A city is made up of people who you grew up with, and
Yeah.
friends and colleagues and everyone else. You go and you try and meet them as often as possible.
Amazing. And I think if you actually come back to Bangalore right now, you'll explore a certain areas. You won't even recognize that you're in Bangalore. You feel like you're in some other city. It's completely redeveloped. I think you just don't connect to those areas anymore because the whole Carbon Park aspect, central Bangalore, it's got that charm. But the development, I think, has kind of taken down that old 90s charm that we had.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Cubbon Park, again, there's this place in Cubbon Park where there are these, I don't know if you've been there, there are these giant rocks in one spot of Cubbon Park.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
you can go sit there and you can just,
Yeah.
do nothing.
Yeah.
Just go there and sit. And we used to actually, a group of us used to just meet there to just
Okay.
chat, or just, we used to have this quiz club, and we used to
Okay.
ask each other quiz questions and all that.
Wow.
So, places like that, and nobody used to disturb you there. You're just there. So places like that still exist, but largely, yeah, you have to seek them out. It's not like they exist everywhere.
Absolutely. And I think, speaking of friends, are any of your friends mentioned in the book? Is it
That's
like
what,
a sort of,
as I said, they're all there, but they are
okay,
not individual
very subtle.
characters.
Okay.
You can't really find out who is who, but many of the characteristics are there for sure.
Okay.
I mean, each character is like a mix of several, and of course, a lot of my own additions, but they're all there for sure. And they're definitely there in the acknowledgements. I mean, I've mentioned about 5 or 6 of them from my school. I've put all nicknames in there, but they're all there.
How was their reaction reading the book?
Some of them read the book even before it was published, actually, and
Okay.
they were very good with feedback. They gave
Okay.
me a lot of good feedback about not just about memories, but just about the writing and aspects that worked, aspects that didn't work.
Okay.
It's quite a.
Okay.
I mean, it's also meant to be a funny book, so there are quite a few funny scenes and funny lines. But a few of them also pointed out bits that didn't really come across as funny. And I'm good because I deleted those bits. I mean, there's no point adding a joke if it doesn't work. So
Yeah. And any teacher who's read the book?
Actually, one teacher from school got back to me, and a lady teacher, and she
Okay.
liked the book a lot. She loved the book. She said I could relate to it. Every batch we see similar things happening, and
Happening.
also two of her sons went to the school, so
Okay.
she has an experience both as a parent and a teacher. And she said of course there's some bad language in the book as well, and
Yes.
but she said that it's good that you added that bad language, because that's what makes it real. You can't have a book about a boys school which is so neat and refined in its language, because they don't speak that way. Boys are always cursing and swearing, and I mean, not boys, everyone, but especially boys in an all boys setting.
Yeah, I think that comes across very lifelike, as I said, the whole cricket tournament, the screaming, the shouting, all of that's very, I think so many slogans that they're singing. That's something that people use even today in Bangalore.
Yeah, those are all like Bangalore specific things. Like you go to
Yeah.
any, it's not just this school, there you go to any school game or any inter-school game, you'll hear many of those slogans. And so, yeah, those were all really big in Bangalore back then, and even now they continue. In fact, I think somebody told me that uh, uh, I forgot who, but somebody told me that even last year they were at some inter-school cricket match and they were hearing a couple of these slogans. So
Oh,
yeah, it's
wow.
continuing.
I think it will for a while.
It's hard
Do
to
you
hard to
have,
know.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, do you have plans of writing a sequel to this book?
No, I don't have plans of writing a sequel to this book, because I thought it'll become too repetitive if it comes again. I have to go back to Karthik in school and things. But
Okay.
at some point, I thought maybe I can write a sequel, if at all I write a sequel. I
Okay.
haven't done anything about it, but I thought I
Okay.
could think of doing one when the boys have all grown up.
Okay.
Maybe when they are in college, or maybe even after they finished college, and there is some particular event that brings them all together.
Okay.
And I thought it'd be interesting to explore then how they behave then and how they've changed, and
Absolutely.
if something happens. But that's all just ideas. Nothing is gone on paper.
Okay. Do you have any other future plans?
I'm hoping. I've been trying to write a bit here and there, but it's been difficult. There's been a lot going on this year. 2020, of course, is the year of everything happening, and I've been trying. I've not really got anything concrete going yet. I'm hoping to. The key is I'm trying to find a character. Like Karthik was this character I found, and I could then run with him, and I could then do as much as I could with him. I've not
Okay.
found such a character yet. So hopefully I'll
Mhm.
find someone like that soon.
Amazing. I think we could take a few audience questions right now if any of them have some questions or interesting things to say.
Yeah, sure. Questions, comments. If you have read the book, you can say what you felt. I'm happy
Absolutely.
to answer anything that you want to ask. Or if you just want to ask me about cricket, if you want to ask me about IPL, go for it. Okay, Bharti is asking, what are you reading? Your favorite authors?
Authors.
Okay, actually, I just finished reading a book of an author that I really like. I finished reading a book called Burmese Days by
Correct.
George Orwell. And George Orwell
Okay.
is a writer I really, really like, both
Mm-hmm.
his fiction and non-fiction. He writes with a lot of clarity. And Burmese Days is a wonderful book. This is set in Burma in the 1920s. And Orwell, in fact, worked in Burma in the police force. So he's brought in a bit of those experiences. As for favorite authors, yeah, Orwell is one of my favorite authors. But apart from that, R.K. Narayan is a writer I have to mention, and I mention him every time. And in fact, Swami and Friends, which was the first book I, fell in love with,
Wow.
is you can see a lot of inspirations from Swami and Friends in Karthik as well, because
Yeah.
if you write from the friends to the family to the school. I mean, Swami goes to a Christian missionary school, so does Karthik, and there's a lot of commonalities. So yeah, R.K. Narayan is definitely one of my favorite writers. There's so many. Mark Twain. Mark Twain's books, had a big impression on me. There's this great Kannada writer called Kuvempu,
Wow.
who I studied in school. He's a poet and a writer. So many of these writers, Tamil writer called Ashoka Mitran, very,
Okay.
very fine writer. So yeah, there many, too many. Okay, there's another
Amazing.
question, I think. How is an
How is an
Indian?
Indian reader different to a reader from the West or a foreign reader?
I think readers eventually are. I mean, you can't really distinguish that way. Of course, there
Okay.
are these cultural aspects. I mean, a foreign reader might not relate to specific things like you spoke about. Like the filter coffee or the specific brand names that you have
Yeah.
in Bangalore, the things that you grew up with.
True.
Like washing powder Nirma. I mean,
Yeah.
if you say washing powder Nirma, then Indian has a very specific connection to it. But a
True.
person who's grown up in the US will not really get it. But it's fine because, every book is set in a certain place. And
Yeah.
some readers may get something, some readers may not get something. But at the end, you're looking for the human element, right? I mean, and
Absolutely.
people are people. 12-year-olds in the US go through their own challenges. 12-year-olds in, different countries, say Kenya, a 12-year-old in Kenya goes through their own challenges. But it's not that different. I mean, you
Yeah.
grow up in a largely similar way. So yeah, I mean, I think readers wise, you have to be sure that you don't go like you don't you know come up with terms and language that nobody will understand. But
True.
occasionally, if you say the name of an Indian food item, it's okay because somebody may not get it. But so what? I read books from set in Russia where I don't
Rush.
understand so many things. But so
Yeah.
what? I love them. So big deal.
Yeah, that's true actually. And sometimes I feel like the whole experience that Indian schools have, and our education system, when somebody from the West reads it, that's where the difference lies. Because they have a very different way of learning things, unlike us.
They do, but I think one of the, there are two things about reading, right? One is that you read something and you feel this could have been me.
Yeah,
But, there's this other kind of reading where you read it and say, oh my God, I had no idea about it.
yeah,
And you're like, I never experienced many of these things. And so I think, just as an Indian reader reads this book and says, oh, okay, this is pretty much my life. I had a comment recently where he said, it's Karthik, but it could have been me. But
okay,
at the same time, somebody reading it in somewhere else may think, okay, I had no idea about this. And that is itself a great part of reading, to read something
absolutely.
different and to read something about a different environment, different culture, how kids, like not many people, in fact, a couple of people, friends of mine who live here, had no idea about how big Christian missionary schools are in India. That,
Okay.
I mean, you would think it's pretty obvious because there are Christian missionary schools everywhere. But they weren't aware, and they were like, "Oh, okay, I had no idea that someone like you would have studied in a school like that." So that itself is a different thing for them to read.
That's interesting, actually.
Yeah.
We have Mahavir who's saying a wonderful book. I think he's read the book.
Oh, okay.
Mahavir, do let us know what you feel about the book if you've read it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing a few things. Mihir Jayaraman, actually. Mihir Jayaraman is a good friend of mine.
Okay.
Yeah, he's also here. Hi, Mihir.
I'm so
Good to see
sorry.
you. And then you
Hi,
have
Mihir.
Shruti Dikshit who's saying hi to you, Natasha. So you should.
Hi. Hi, Shruti.
Yeah. So yeah, any questions or any comments, please feel free. In the meanwhile, I would urge you to read the book, and also if you have read the book, leave a comment or a review anywhere. It'll be really good for others to get an idea of it as well.
Absolutely. I think the books are available at all our stores, and we also have a website through which you can order. We have a website called Sapna Online. You can head to the website and we deliver across the world. So order your copy now.
Yeah, and I love the cover. I mean, apart from the fact that it has a wonderful little note from Rahul Dravid and also Samant, who is a
Yeah.
very fine journalist and writer. Apart from that, I just love the design of the cover. I have to credit Bhavi Mehta here, who
Wow.
was responsible for the cover, and that little ink stain and the pocket is perfect. So yeah, so somebody Shah 18 is saying, so looking forward to reading the book now. Yes, please go ahead, and I would love to hear
Why?
what you think.
Shruti is asking us, why don't we do a 2-minute reading session from it? Actually, would you mind?
I wouldn't mind, but is Insta? I mean, I don't know if what I.
We do have about 10 odd minutes. I think
Okay.
you can read to us the favorite part of the entire book.
I don't know if I have a favorite part of the book, but okay, let me read this part. This is the part where this is actually in the very first chapter, but it's slightly in the sort of the second segment, where
Okay.
Karthik is talking about his admission into this new school that he has got into. It's called St. George's Boys High School,
Yeah.
and he's talking about how his whole his family and his mom especially was really thrilled about this. So let me read here. Nobody was as excited about my admission to St. George's Boys High School as my mother. He has had a great time at Sacred Valley, she told our neighbor auntie, Mrs. Chaco, but we weren't sure. We weren't sure if this style of education was preparing him for the real world. Mrs. Chaco sat up in her chair and snapped her fingers, excited that my mother had finally seen the light. Yes, yes, nice place and all that Sacred Valley, but so pricey and posh and so far away from humanity. Absolutely no chance for Karthik to take part in the sports meets and literary fests in the city. Good point, my mother said. And the teachers were always saying he's doing well, he's doing great. Sometimes I felt they were saying all this just like that. You know, I took Karthik to 3 temples today, offered thanks to the gods and the priests, circled the shrines 108 times. Mrs. Chaco was not in the least surprised. She knew how ardently my mother communicated with the gods. One rainy evening last year, when I was heavily delayed getting back from school, the one far away from humanity, my mother sent up a prayer that she would walk up a hill to the temple in Tirupati if I returned safe. My father and grandfather felt she had overprayed. Mrs. Chaco voiced her disapproval. Please don't mistake me, she said through a put-on whisper, but what if Karthik is, kidnapped someday? Shouldn't you be saving these prayers for then? My mother was appalled. About a month later, she prepared enough food to last a week and embarked on a train journey to Tirupati, along with another one of our neighbor aunties, Mrs. Nagaraj. Unlike Mrs. Nagaraj's yoga-toned physique, my mother's bulky frame hadn't accounted for the 12-kilometer trek uphill. Oh ho, Mrs. Chaco snorted when she saw my mother's sore knees and cracked soles. See, this is what happens. Not good. Not good at all. Health is most important, Kamala. Not as if we are getting younger, right? Now, Mrs. Chaco was fired up about my admission to SGBHS. You must make him properly ready for St. George's, Kamala. It will be very different from Sacred Valley. I am telling you, very, very different. The same evening, a checklist appeared on a square chit of paper, which my mother magnetically stuck to the fridge. This was to remind my father of the items to tick off over the next few days. Apply for K's bus pass, contact tailor for uniform, Rao and Rao, phone number 648177. Buy 2 pairs formal shoes and 4 pairs socks. Ask school for list of textbooks and notebooks to buy. Buy brown paper to cover books. Get K extra spectacles. Next, she made another checklist just for me. Cut hair in excellent salon. Wash sport shoes. Cover notebooks with brown paper. Remind Appa to buy brown paper. Study first chapter of each textbook. Memorize school song. Practice handwriting. Learn 3 new English words every day. Take 1 tablespoon Chyawanprash morning and evening. There was something for everyone to worry about. The tailor's lateness caused plenty of headaches. The barber, as usual, bungled my haircut. And despite my diligent copy filling, my handwriting just wouldn't look up. As if that wasn't enough, when I washed my shoes and left them out to dry, a downpour soaked them. It was unclear if my mother was sad, anxious, angry, or frustrated by all this. So I assumed she was all of the above. So that gives you like a general idea of the voice and the tone and all that. And also these little things that everyone would have gone through, like covering your textbooks and notebooks with brown paper, and your parents asking you to study the first chapter even before your school has started, as if that is going to make you some I mean, it's like ridiculous, right? But that's the kind of things that kids have to do, and I had to do as well. And
Yeah.
I
Me
don't think
too.
I don't think my mother is watching this. I don't think she has any idea of Instagram. But mom, I mean, why? What is all this? So yeah, so that'll give you an idea. I mean, I don't want to read too much more because there has references to bits that you won't get until you read the book. But I thought this will give you a good gist of what to expect.
I hope it was intriguing enough to all our readers and listeners. Please get your hands on this copy because, trust me, from my recommendation, this is such a wholehearted, very relatable book that makes you just want to cuddle up in bed and read. And as soon as you're done reading, it makes you want to call up all those long lost friends from school because, it actually takes you back in time.
Great to hear. And yeah, as I said, I'd love to hear what you think about it. Please recommend it to your friends and classmates and whoever else would like to read such a book. And I have you can find me anywhere online on Twitter, Facebook. I have a website also, sidvi.net, so you can even leave a comment there. And yeah, would love to hear what you think, because eventually, this book is complete only when people read and react to it and respond to it. And I feel whenever I get a comment from people or an email, or whenever I see a comment on whenever I see a comment online, I feel that the book has completed a little journey. So I feel very happy when I hear back. So please reach out to me, and even if you don't like the book, please reach out to me. I'm happy to hear criticism of the book as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Siddhartha, for such a lovely and fun chat. I wish you all the best from all of us at Sapna Book House. And we're definitely looking forward to more sessions, more book reviews, and hoping that we hear from you soon so we have another book to talk about.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. And next time I'm in Bangalore, hopefully once all the pandemic is clear and things are slightly more normal, hopefully I can come over and, come over to the bookstore and, buy some books and also chat with everyone around there. And it'll be great.
Absolutely. Looking forward to having you over.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you.